A new performer was about to appear whose frenzied style would set them worrying again.
That's going to be the biggest cotton-picking record of the year.
Well, I certainly hope
he's right. Good ball, but he defies around the Pasquale. Well, Jerry, yes, sir, we're going to have old Jerry Lewis back in just a minute. Jerry Lee Lewis with the greatest record I think he's ever recorded. Great Balls of Fire. We'll see you after a while, Jerry, okay?
All right, Mr.
Go out and get you a cold bottle of Coca-Cola.
Thank you.
Hit it.
Yeah.
You shake my nerves and you rattle my brain. Too much of love drives a man insane. You broke my will, but what a thrill. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire. I laughed in love because I thought it was funny. You came along and moved, and honey, I changed my mind. This love is fine. Oh, goodness gracious, great balls of fire.
Back in Memphis, Sam Phillips had discovered another explosive talent ready to be unleashed. A boogie version of Drinking Wine Spodiodi, a tune by black blues singer Stick McGee, was the first song Jerry Lee Lewis performed professionally at the age of 13 for just a few dollars.
Come on, baby, pass that old bottle to me.
Well, I remember my Aunt Minnie Belle Swaggart, Jimmy's mother, she got on me about that song. She said, "Now, Jerry, that's not a Christian song." I said, I don't know. I think it's a good song. Aunt Minnie Belle, she said, "It's not a Christian song." I said, "No, but it's a good boogie song." And that was 1949.
When he was 15, Lewis's mother sent him to Texas to study for the ministry, but honky-tonk music always pulled at his soul.
There was a young preacher, he said, "Jerry Lee, they want me to do My God Is Real in church. Would you accompany me on the piano?" I said, "Sure, I'd be glad to." You know, I didn't play it like, awesome thing I may not know. I mean, that's what some people did. Well, I did it, awesome thing I may not know. Oh, the awesome places I know that I can't go. You know, like that. And I showed him how to do it, the boogie style, you know. And he actually just tore them up, everybody except the dean. And I saw that dean, he was doing like this to me.
Lewis's expulsion from the Southwestern Bible Institute tossed him back into Delta dives and honky-tonks. In 1955, he heard about Sam Phillips.
I went up to Memphis, me and my dad, and we sold about 39 dozen eggs, raised some money, and get some gas. And we went up there, and I met Jack Clement, and he said Sam was in Florida on vacation.
I finally agreed to go ahead and record it. And I listened to it, and I kid you not. I mean, I think the first side I heard was "You Win Again." No, Crazy Arms. And I did not get 8 bars into it. I said, "Where in the hell is this cat?"
And it was just
Sam Phillips signed the 21-year-old Lewis to Sun Records. Then, sometime in 1956, in a club called the Wagon Wheel, Lewis heard the song that would ignite his career.
I was walking in the club, I was late that night, and I heard this guy singing "A Whole Lot of Shaking" going on. And I listened to it, and I said, "Man, I don't know where that's coming from." I said, "That's Johnny singing it." I said, "That is a hit." And he'd done the whole thing. I said, "Easy now, stand it in one spot and wiggle it around a little bit, you know." And that's where I learned "A Whole Lot of Shaking."
Well, I'm gonna write a little letter, I'm gonna mail it to my local DJ.
By the end of 1956, rock and roll had created a revolution that could not be stopped. Teenagers everywhere went rock and roll crazy.
You know my temperature's rising, the jukebox blowing a fuse.
And I'm going to simply recite it for you, if I may, as a poem. Just drink in the simple beauty and the profundity of the sentiment. Sketch. Bee-bop-a-loo-ba, she's my baby. Bee-bop-a-loo-ba, I don't mean maybe. She's the one that's got the beat She's the one with flying feet. She's the one that walks around the store. She's the one that gets more and more. Bee-baba-looba, she's my baby. Bee-baba-looba, I don't mean maybe. Bee-baba-looba, she's my baby love, my baby love, my baby love.
Oh, bee-baba-loo, she's my baby. Bee-baba-loo.
Most record executives still didn't understand rock and roll, but they could no longer ignore the demand for the big beat. As the record industry opened its doors to new artists, a second wave of performers appeared. One of the first was a lanky Texan with glasses, Buddy Holly.
If you knew Peggy Sue, then you know why I feel blue without Peggy. My Peggy Sue. Oh, well, I love you, gal, yes, I love you, Peggy Sue. Bye-bye, love you. Bye-bye, happiness. Hello, loneliness. I think I'm gonna cry.
European teenagers had been eagerly following rock and roll's progress in America from the start. Haley's arrival on European soil, however, touched off an explosion of unbridled enthusiasm and, in a few cases, uncontrollable violence. Rock and roll had turned the music industry and young America upside down. But for some of the performers who had given it life, the end was already drawing near. By 1958, the tide was turning against rock and roll. Looking for an excuse to undermine the music they felt was corrupting America's youth, the U.S. government began an investigation into payola, the practice of DJs accepting money to play records.
Many radio pioneers came under fire for accepting money for playing records, even though the practice was common and perfectly legal.
I was sent a check every month, and we were known as consultants. And bear in mind, this was not against the law at the time. I mean, there'd never been anything like this anyhow. So you could pick up you know, it was much heavier in New York or Chicago or Detroit or L.A. than it was with us, even though we had this tremendous coverage. And as I said, it was not against the law, and we took it, and we weren't paid very much, so it was just part of the game.
Little Richard traded the devil's music for religion in January 1958. 2 months later, Elvis Presley entered the army. In May, Jerry Lee Lewis was blacklisted after marrying his 13-year-old cousin. Finally, Chuck Berry was imprisoned for transporting a teenage girl across state lines in 1959. But new talents came through to fill the gap.
I want to ask you a question. How old are all of you fellas?
Well, there's 218, 120, and I'm 21.
If you knew Peggy Sue, then you know why I feel blue without Peggy.
Even though their own career was tragically short, Buddy Holly and the Cricket set the standard for the coming decade and for bands like the Beatles. Original music played with 2 guitars, bass and drums. And new DJs emerged to play the music. The rock and roll genie had come out of the bottle and was ready for the decades of musical revolution to come.
Alan Freed's career was ruined. 4 years later, he died. a broken man.
Rock and roll star Little Richard announced today that he was quitting show business to dedicate his life to God. The always unpredictable singing idol, who claims to have made over $1 million in the last 2 years with hits such as Tutti Frutti and Lucille, has enrolled in a Bible college in Alabama to, in his own words, make peace with Jesus. The abrupt announcement, which came at what seemed the height of his brief career, stunned the music industry and fans everywhere.
When were you married? Pardon? When were you married? Well, we leave our personal questions out of this, sir. All right. Well, good luck. Thank you.
We're here today at the German port of Bremen as Private Elvis Presley arrives in Europe to begin his tour of duty with the American 3rd Armored Division. Hundreds of young German fans have come here to greet Elvis and to get one last look at the king of rock and roll before he disappears into Army life. The military police are doing their best to control the crowd as Elvis presses his way toward the troop train that will take him to the American Army base near Frankfurt.
But performing was lucrative. So in the winter of 1959, he decided to join newcomers Ritchie Valens and the Big Bopper for one more tour.
Historian from Clear Lake, Iowa, 3 of the nation's top rock and roll singing stars, Ritchie Valens, J.P. the Big Bopper Richardson, and Buddy Holly, died today with their pilot in the crash of a chartered plane. Following an appearance before 1,000 fans.
The decade ended as it had begun. The homogenizing influence of the music establishment produced clean-cut, respectable, white performers who stayed well within the bounds of polite entertainment. Gradually but thoroughly, the hard edges of rock and roll were eradicated. The strong regional accents silenced, the spontaneity and the spirit of rebellion stifled.